The bells are ringing, so it must be time to start the meeting. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's Policy and Resources Committee. This is a public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photographing, making an audio recording and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed. Once you have left the building, the assembly point is in the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Members and other speakers are reminded to use their microphone when speaking. So we start with appointment of substitutes, and I think we've got a couple. Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest? I'm mindful that we've got essentially the full council budget on the agenda, so there may well be. Jabba?
So Chair Foster Mellon.
Any other declarations of interest? No. Okay, thank you. Public representation, I don't see any members of the public there, which brings us to the minutes of the last meeting. So if I go through those page by page, if there's any comments or anything. Page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, page 5, and we have confidential minute from the last meeting, so if there's no comment in any of those, members happy that I sign them as an accurate record. Thank you. I can see nodding around the table. So that brings us to item 5. Medium-term financial plan for the next 3 years.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So what you've got before you is the draft budget, which has been worked on over the months, and it will go on to Council on the February the 24th. What I was going to do was sort of concentrate on the changes that have taken place since I last reported to you in December on the MTFP. So there's quite a lot happened since then, and forgive me, it was a bit before Christmas, so yeah, we've all had lots of turkey since. So all of the changes are in Appendix 3 that take us from the December P&R report to what's in front of you now. And this report is built on the basis of the provisional local government settlement, which we received on the 17th of December. We did receive the final settlement yesterday, and I'll just touch on some of the changes that have occurred from that. So in December, we discussed a lot of additional pressures and some savings that were management discretion and sort of housekeeping arrangements. I also mentioned that we'd got a bubbling pressure with Aswood Creme. We knew that the works were going to be finishing sometime next financial year, but we weren't exactly sure, and there's alternative arrangements being put in place there. So we've now actually built in £700,000 worth of additional budget to help mitigate the changes there. We've identified £109,000 worth of additional pressures, and those are mainly resulting from the shared services that operate with Malvern and Wychavon, and those budgets weren't available back in December. Also, we've got £379,000 rising to nearly £400,000 worth of new savings, and all of those pressures and savings are all detailed in the appendices, and there's some summary information in the body of the report. We've also, the extended producer recycling responsibility. We have known it's a thing that's operating in 25-26 financial year. The government's confirmed a guaranteed number of £949,000, but we have had a letter to say that in theory we could receive up to about £1.7 million, and we have been receiving cash payments in that order. For 26-27, we've had an allocation of a similar amount with just inflated. So we've actually built in that 1.7 million subject to inflation uplifts for the next 5 years of the budget. There is some new expenditure sort of targeted against that to help improve our recycling, but it's quite small in comparison to the size of that income that's there. As I said, we received the provisional settlement, and what I'd hinted at before was that there was a lot of changes in the number of grants that we received, so there's a lot of consolidation gone on, and there's also changes to the formulas that drive the money going through the system. So as a result of just funding changes rather than any cuts, we now have temporary accommodation, which is funded from our main sort of revenue support grant, rather than a separate ring-fence grant. So the paperwork suggests that we've had £510,000 additional money through revenue support grant, so we've actually just built that into our base budget assumptions. The same with the 27k biodiversity net gain grant. So this is not necessarily new money as such, it's just the way that it's financed, so at least it puts it on a more even footing and we know where we are going forwards. In Appendix 3, you'll see that all of the changes that have taken place and building in a lot of that extended producer income, it's allowed us to actually put £1.4 million worth of budget back into our earmarked reserves in 26-27 and £310,000 in the year after. Before Christmas, I've been highlighting the fact that we were drawing down our reserves quite quickly. Some of it was planned, some of it was, you know, just circumstances that are taking place. So I wouldn't want anybody to think that this is just a windfall as such, but it is just getting us onto a safer footing going forward so that we've got more resilience for any other shocks that might come through over the next few years. And certainly in Section 5, I've tried to highlight some of those risks that the Council faces over the next few years, whether it be our capital schemes, local government reorganisation, VAT, or, you know, just general demand on our services. So that's more or less the provisional settlement. And you'll know from the report and the discussion in December, there's lots of changes that have taken place on business rates, with a business rates revaluation, a business rates reset, multipliers going from 2 to 5, and also on the 27th of January, a 15% discount was introduced for pubs and venues that offer live music. So those all come into effect from the 1st of April. That 15% discount is not going to cost the local council any money. Will be fully reimbursed by a further Section 31 grant from government. So it's something there for businesses that is not a cost to us. Also, since December, P&R, we launched a public consultation. We did get, 140 responses. Not a great response, but some there, and the results of that are in Appendix 2 for information. And we've also, that included us contacting businesses and trying to let them know about the changes on business rates. The budget has been through all of the policy committees in January, and during all of those committees there was debate, but all of the recommendations were endorsed at the time, and that's why the budget is just following on, building on those recommendations that went to committee. So normally when you get the provisional settlement, it's normally the final settlement comes through end of January, early February. And a lot of the time it's sort of rounding differences, or somebody might have found a small error, or, you know, not normally very material. However, this time we have, there is a change to the methodology that has been used to come up with our starting position, and it all links to the fact that we are in a business rates pool with Hereford and the other Worcestershire councils. And because of that change in methodology, it does mean that we would be losing out by about £278,000. However, the government has introduced a new grant, an adjustment support grant, which is equal to that loss. So we are not detrimentally impacted at all for 26-27. But for 27-28, the numbers that you've got in front of you will be £140,000 lighter on our revenue support grant because of this change. What I sort of shared with group leaders yesterday, that where I've just said that this report in Appendix 3 shows that we're putting £310,000 aside into our earmark reserves that year. As it stands at the moment, the budget principles still work. We'll just reduce that figure by £140,000. So that you can still all balance going forwards. But, you know, we will have to really look at future years' budgets during the summer as a, you know, an iterative process anyway. But that was the impact of the final settlement. That was announced yesterday, so it was too late for publication of this report. The other slight change that came out of the final settlement was that the homelessness and prevention grant, we've received an extra £87,000 for 26-27, and that's partly linked to additional funding for some formula elements, but also for the new burdens around renters' rights as well. The MTFP has got associated with it a number of strategies in the back of the appendices. There's the Treasury strategy, there's the capital strategy, which is very similar to last year, and last year was the first year we introduced the flexible use of capital receipts. Buried in that appendix, so I'm flagging it up to you rather than asking you to go, you know, hunting for it. We have actually spent £278,000 as part of the financial sustainability plan. So we've charged £278,000 of termination payments to our capital receipts at that point in time, which was in line with the strategy that was agreed at full council last year. And also there's the investment strategy and the pay policy strategy, which is statutory requirement to prepare and then go on to full council. All of those are in line with previous years, and there's no material changes in any of those. I think that's everything I wanted to cover in terms of the highlights, but, you know, there's a lot gone on there with significant changes, and I think it's really important that everybody is really clear about what is in the budget and what's not in the budget, so that, you know, at council, hopefully everything goes through very smoothly. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a huge amount of ground that you've covered there, and a huge amount of work that's gone on in order to get, you know, council to this position for us to have a balanced budget that hopefully will be delivering services and priorities for the city, you know, and that's work by officers and also colleagues across committees. So, you know, well done to everybody for getting us to this point. There is a lot of detail and a lot of information here, so open to kind of questions, comments, observations. Alex?
Thank you, Chair. So I also wanted to say thank you to officers for all the work that's gone into this, and also all the members and the committees that were involved in getting to this point. I think we've got to the point of that this is a good medium-term financial plan that's balanced for the rest of the life of this council, and I think I'm really glad that we've got some of the things we wanted. We didn't get everything, but you know, compromise is the name of the game, and we've reached a good position. There's a couple of things I wanted to draw out and comment on, and a couple of questions. One was on the survey, so page 20 of Appendix 2. there's the list of things where respondents have said what they would prefer us to spend more on, spend the same or spend less on. And the two areas that they would particularly like us to spend more on are community safety and housing, which, I think wouldn't really be a surprise to anyone with the issues we've had with antisocial behaviour and fascist activity in the last year, that community safety might be an important thing for us to be looking at. And housing and availability and affordability both remain big issues in the city. So I'd certainly like to see information coming forward over the next year on what more we can do on those matters. On page 28, Appendix 3, car parking provider fees. I think there was a bit of a discussion last year about the cost that we were paying for Ringo, so I'm glad to see that we've got a significant saving on those fees going forward. And then the two questions I had were on page 74, the investment strategy. It mentions an updated asset management plan for the period 2025 to 28 is currently going through the approval process. As we're now in 2026, is that accurate? And finally, the Chancellor announced revaluations and additional council tax charges on houses in bands F, G and H. I've not seen any discussion of that through the budget setting. Could you just let us know when that's coming in, and will we see any revenue benefit from it locally, please?
Through you, Chair. So the council tax, that's all due to come in to play from April 2028, and as was announced at the time, it looks like local authorities are playing as an agent, so just collecting it, not necessarily coming into our budget. So at that point, it's not been included in any of our assumptions until there's more clarity about what might be done with that. In terms of the asset plan, there's a couple of things going on, and we've probably an historical reference, to be fair, but we do have a 3-year budgeted plan to update, spending on the Angel Place toilets and those are the things that we've done, and we've also taken a report to CLT, so it's probably just the wording needed to be tweaked on that. Thanks.
Can't believe everybody's gone awfully quiet and has nothing to say. Edward.
Thank you. Well, since you're asking for someone to say something, I was going to say I've had a little bit of time to get myself familiar with the document here, and I've got to say it looks like a sensible cross-party bit of work and administration, which stands in stark contrast to some other local authorities I could think about, but I shall not name. Looking at the responses to the council's consultation, I think Alex and I have been looking at the same pages and some of the same data. On page 21 of the report, there were 5 ways identified to raise funds or make savings. And I'm heartened to see that the least popular measure would have been cuts to non-essential services, and in particular things like investment into our city's culture. I think it goes to show how deep Worcester's commitment is to the conservation of its heritage and the development of its culture. Funnily enough, despite the commentary that one might see online or in other sort of media, it looks as though the most popular measure was actually increasing car parking charges, which I thought was an interesting piece of data. Under question 5, I noted, though, that there was a distressingly high number of responses indicating that a lot of our residents are not using or not gaining the benefit from access to our play facilities, and I wonder if this is possible, if it's possibly the result of poor access to play in significant chunks of our city, or maybe a result of the age profile of the people that we're asking. It's just a question I thought I would leave the group with in case anybody can give me an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. And the bar chart next to that from the survey of residents is the most used facility is our parks. And clearly, I suspect that there are people that use the parks but don't notice the play area in the corner, and how really, really important parks are to health and well-being in the city. Yeah, interesting data. Thank you. I've got Pat next.
Thank you. This is a question for Rachel, really, which is a couple of things, really. One is I see the figures for the business rates income, but I can't quite recall offhand how much of it we're allowed to retain percentage-wise, because I know some of it we don't, it goes straight to government. So I wouldn't mind knowing how much of it is ours. And the other thing is, I note also on the Treasury section, which is page 55, that our internal borrowing is dropping off as our reserves reduce, but that's because of capital spend. And, you know, we're actually spending it on the culture and on the things we're supposed to spend it on to make this city a much better place to live. And that's you know, that's obviously something that people have approved of, residents approve of. So that's great, but obviously we've got this new strategy, well, this, I won't say new strategy, but we have a prudent borrowing strategy in place. So we'll be phasing in external borrowing, and there is a cost to that, and we'll have to bear that in mind next time. Just a thought.
Yeah, so in terms of your first question about business rates retention, 50% of what we collect goes to central government, and 40% stays here with the Worcester City, and 10% goes to the county. Yes, you are correct with the Treasury. So our external borrowing, we are expected to do probably between 10 and 15 million pounds worth of borrowing between now and this time next financial year, just because of the expenditure that we've got going out, and it's all on capital schemes. So it's perfectly legitimate what you're doing. You know, we are borrowing for capital expenditure rather than day-to-day running of services. And those costs of repaying those external loans are built into the budget, and you know they are included in some of the big numbers in Appendix 3. It's about repaying the interest and the actual sort of capital element of it as well. But it's managing that balance so that we don't spend too much of our revenue funds each year on borrowing costs.
The other thing about business rates is I was very pleased to see the government's reduction of 15%, which supports small and medium-sized businesses, of which we have rather a lot. And they do need our support. They don't have the resilience that larger businesses have. So that's really good news for local business.
Thank you, Pat. Karen?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I wanted to highlight the question 2 in the survey, and it also links to the performance scorecard, actually, when you see the volume of what the people in our in-person services do for the City Council. And I want to talk about personal experience, actually, because face-to-face and telephone support for people when you are in need is so important, and you've got 58% of people saying that here in the survey. You know, I've had just recent experience of another council where I couldn't see anyone in person. No one answered the phone. It took me 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I think, to get a response from an email to an urgent inquiry. You know, when you are in need and you need that help, you know, especially when you've got a financial query for your council tax, you know, and you're you know, finding life very difficult, speaking to a person who understands is actually an actual lifeline for people. So I just wanted to highlight what a brilliant service that is. And then going to the strategy, the financial strategy, and this is a bit buried, so I thought I would just highlight it for people. And I want to thank Rachel for doing this, actually. It's the, I don't have page numbers, actually, which doesn't really help. Yeah, do you know what page it is? It's just added onto the list at the very bottom. It's the Treasury Management, and it's the investment strategy, and it's talking about community investment as one of our potentials for getting funding for things. And it's obviously, it's just a couple of words in this report, but it allows us over the next year to actually look into something that potentially could be good for the council and good for the community of the city. So I'm really grateful that that's in this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, have you found the specific wording? Would that be helpful?
Page 57, at the bottom, there's sources of borrowing in bold, and then there's a few bullet points, and the last bullet point is community municipal investments.
Well done for finding that, sorry. And I think, no, it is clear that this is an investment strategy by the council in Worcester and in our communities, and delivering important, you know, environmental, social, and actually what our residents want and need, which is really good. Thank you. Jabba? Oh, sorry.
I'll give way to Mel. She's first, yeah.
Maybe it's best. It was only just a comment, really. I just think we have collaboratively done some sensible work here at City Council, and I feel comfortable with our medium-term financial. On the reform administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's great to see partnership working, isn't it? Partnership working and cross-party working to achieve what's best for the city. And we've done that for a number of years now, haven't we, in terms of that? And that's kind of been reflected in all the great stuff that we've achieved for the city and are achieving for the city, you know, and long may it continue that way. And I wanted to particularly highlight the shift since a change of administration in terms of no Tories at the table, let's be honest, in terms of that, and in terms of the shift that we've achieved as a city in terms of arts and culture. I really wanted to particularly highlight that, and a number of things that have happened over the last month or so and a number of years that have led us to this point. One of the questions in this survey has been actually where would we like to invest, the city would like to invest more in, and it's been highlighted at arts and culture. We had a visit from Arts Council England, from Liz Johnson, the Regional Director of Arts Council, the other day, and met with the partners of Scala, with Mella and Seven Arts, and we as a city gave them a tour of the wonderful facility that we've got at Scala, and she commented particularly on how great we are as a city have delivered on Arts Council funding, on Cultural Development Fund, on everything that we've kind of received, we've delivered over and above. And that's been credit to our Managing Director, our officers, our vision as councillors to back that and go along with it. And that's reflected in what we're seeing out here in the city in terms of that cultural shift that we've managed to achieve in terms of that. And it's a credit, I think, really, really good credit to that. Yeah, only yesterday I was involved in invited to the all-parliamentary group for arts and culture that was hosted in this room earlier to feedback on what we could do as a city and what we've done well, highlighting and championing the cause of Worcester in front of that select committee, and they were really impressed in terms of how we're working together and what we've achieved. We're punching above our weight. We've delivered on all the promises that we've said we're going to go and deliver, and we should be shouting really, really out and loud. And there is a case for Worcester being a case study on a national stage for both the Arts Council and this all-parliamentary select committee in terms of what we've achieved. I know the funding formulas that have changed in a slightly way, but Worcester may not completely fit in the algorithms that the government have come up with. But from a perspective, we've shown that we can deliver, and I think that's one of our proudest achievements in the city. Over that it's testament that we've contributed from the bottom up and community groups. We've reflected co-creation at its very heart, and that's feeding through and paying dividend both for us as from a community cohesion point of view, and us as being recognised as a city of festivals and a place where culture happens. So thank you.
Yeah, well done, and I know absolutely you've been a key part of that, as have senior officers, and it is about long-term relationship building and delivering, and that is appreciated by residents, and really impressive that it is noted by Arts Council England, and that we are contributing to evidence for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. So yeah, well done for everybody on that. Alex, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, just one really minor point. I absolutely agree on that. There's It was just last year when I voted against the budget, I said it was because we didn't have the detail of where the savings were going to be made. And I just wanted to highlight in Appendix 5, there's 4 pages of listing of what all the savings that we're going to be making over the next year is. And that's been a crucial bit. I know I've banged on about this all year, but I'm really grateful to have had all that information available for scrutiny. It's in the public report, and we know where we're going to be spending extra money and where we're going to be making savings next year. So I just want to say I'm really grateful for that information and all the work's gone into providing that up front. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Noted. I mean, I think some savings are more sensitive than others, particularly if it involves staff reorganisation or the potential for people to lose their jobs, which unfortunately was part of the picture previously. Jessie?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank all the officers and everybody that has worked on this budget and all the work that is going in listening to our concerns and some of the input that is going. And I'm very pleased that we've reached a point where we can have a budget that we can agree on and support. I would just like to highlight that there are things in this budget that are beyond the council's control that will affect residents, and it's worth mentioning that the fact that business grants is not something that we can continue to support. It's not something that is part of our statutory duty, but it's something that we have been able to do in the past. And whilst I support the fact that we no longer be able to fund those because the funding from central government has changed, is something that I plead the county council, which I understand will now be given the funding we used to get, to take into consideration and continue to fund. It's a message from the central government that small businesses need support, and that funding changes, taking the money away from the city council, may have an impact, and that is an impact that needs to be understood at the central government level. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess that's kind of referring to UK SBF, which is funding that was previously available and was initiated by the last government. I think the reality is that that was, in national terms, was unfunded and unbudgeted for centrally. So, you know, our ability to continue it when we don't have an income stream, central government's ability to continue it when they don't have funding behind it. But hopefully there will be other ways of supporting economic development, hopefully, and business growth. We have set a relatively small amount aside, and there are still negotiations continuing between all of the councils in Worcestershire, the role of the county council and the role of Worcestershire LEP, local economic partnership. So those are still live negotiations. But thank you for drawing attention to it. Karen, do you want to come back?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to highlight something at question 6, the public support of the council investing in areas, huge support for investing in the environment, and a very, very tiny amount of people who are unsupportive. And I think if you're Nigel Farage, you probably need to take a look at that, because I've seen political stuff going out, mail shots to everyone in the country where they've got local elections coming up, saying that they're going to unfund net zero because it's ridiculous. Clearly, the public do not believe that, particularly the public in Worcester. You know, this is nearly 70% of people are very supportive, and then you've got a really high amount who are supportive, and only a few people who don't care. So, you know, wrong strategy, I think, and thank you very much for our council doing what we can for the environment.
Thank you. I've got one question, and then I've got a couple of comments to make. The last of the recommendations refers to the pay policy statement, which is tucked in amongst the appendices. That is a document that is coming to our joint consultative staff committee. Is it the same document, and going to discuss it with the unions is part of the process for sign-off in council?
Thank you, Chair. It's in the papers with the unions as a courtesy. It's an information document insofar as when it goes through our trade union committee. It's a statement of fact about our pay policy, and we're not making any decisions within it about exercising any particular discretions. So, but I always think for completeness they should see it anyway. So it doesn't preclude us from supporting it tonight. It's just the timing is just slightly out of sync.
Thank you. Being a person that's in both sets of meetings. Absolutely welcome the budget that we have before us, and welcome, the approach of this government in putting faith and funding into local government. The Fair Funding Review has benefited Worcester City, and the government are absolutely recognise that levels of deprivation are closely linked to need for services. The new formula also takes account of not only deprivation, but sort of rurality, I'm trying to think, and a number of other factors. So it's using up-to-date data and does take account, because Rachel and I were on a sort of a webinar this morning and there was questions asked about it. So even kind of small areas of deprivation within a more well-off area are accounted for in the overall formula and the overall calculation. So absolutely welcome that shift, to move money to where it is most needed within local government, because we are the people that deliver the services and deliver for our residents, and that what we have from central government is actually what local councils have been asking for largely. The government has listened. This is a 3-year settlement, and I think bringing lots of different grants and funding streams together, it might feel slightly confusing at this point of the shift, but overall it makes life simpler. I guess it probably reduces the administrative burden for everybody, and it is about empowering and valuing local councils to deliver, which we absolutely are up for doing that in Worcester and embracing that. Thank you for everybody's contributions in every sense and all the work. There's a lengthy set of recommendations. Julian, do you want me to read it all out? It would be quite cruel if you read everything out. Including the table with the different numbers in. If you can read it where you can, that might make life easier, yeah. Okay. Don't cancel anyway. So. Okay. So somebody have to read it all out again. Thank you. Right. So the recommendations are that the committee notes the medium-term financial plan, that we note the feedback from the policy committees that took place last month and the public consultation. And this committee is then recommending to council the net budget requirement, the council tax requirement, and the statutory amounts required to be calculated for our budget under the relevant parts of the Local Government Finance Act, and have calculated the amounts to be paid by each of the council tax bands within the city. We're also noting the Treasury strategy, the investment strategy and the capital strategy, which includes the council's minimum revenue provision statement. I'm getting nodding from the finance corner. And we're noting the pay policy statement to be adopted. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Well done, team. Thank you. Right. shuffling bits of paper. We're not quite done with setting things because it's a separate paper with regard to proposed fees and charges and the detail within that.
Thank you, Chair. So this is for committee to approve the fees and charges for 26-27, and then approval will go on to full council later in the month. So the fees and charges are detailed in Appendix 1, and the commercially sensitive ones are included in the exempt paper in Appendix 2. These appendices show the increase in price in pounds and the increase percentage-wise. We've aimed to increase all fees and charges by 3% in line with CPS levels. There are a few exclusions from this. One is those fees set nationally, so some of the planning fees, some of the licensing fees, and also as part of the annual review, we take into account full cost recovery and also do a market analysis of prices charged by other providers. This sometimes leads to a variation to the 3%, and those variances are shown in detail in paragraphs 3.4 onwards. I don't plan to read them all out. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Adam is waving hand first.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to remind members that the Environment Committee declined to recommend a rise in allotment rent, which are frozen at present levels, and which is very pleasing for us on the Environment Committee and those who know the value of allotments to the city and to communities. It's in respect of significant rises over the previous years, but it's one of the other exceptions to your 3% rises. No rise in allotment fees.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. I think I should declare an interest on this one, given that my Rotary Club, Worcester Rotary, runs a free of charge cafe in the Sons of Rest twice a month. And the council has been very generous in not charging them, since it is a voluntary effort. But it does make a big difference to the people who attend it, and we're grateful for that.
Yeah, I know it has a useful social purpose and people that
well, it does a great deal to improve social, mental health and physical health as well, and helps combat isolation. It certainly does that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else with their hand up. I thought just kind of explain paragraph 3.14. So charges for the hire of public open spaces, increases there to align with Martin's Law, or the Terrorism Protection of Premises Act. It's a really important kind of risk management for public events, and it is about hostile vehicle management. And unfortunately, I think, as we have seen in some really, really awful incidents elsewhere, that vehicles can be used to mow down crowds and to, provide, to damage, and for whatever reasons, and to properly mitigate that risk is really quite expensive to put those safety measures in place. So, whilst the headline figure might feel uncomfortable, it absolutely is important, and it is linked to, the size of the event in terms of, people likely to attend and so on. So it is a really important measure. Karen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I know that the trade waste is confidential, but I want to put a plea out to local businesses to consider using the Worcester City Council trade waste, because if you use our trade waste, you're actually investing in the city and not in a private company with shareholders from somewhere else in the country and other authorities who might be offering something. You know, it's something that actually helps us invest in things that people use, like the parks, the play areas that people value. And if people can understand that, I think they might be more persuaded to use us. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to go along with the marketing, and I'm saying much the same. And I think also it kind of mindful that, you know, there's been a lot of publicity recently with dodgy waste collection of sort of charlatans that, you know, take the money, take the waste, and then, you know, illegal dumping elsewhere. So having a reliable, ethical trade waste operative is really, really important. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, if the recommendation's really brief, and which is that the committee reviews the proposed schedule of fees and charges for 26-27 and recommend its approval by full council on the 24th of February 2026. So I'll take that to include the pink papers that are commercially confidential as well. So people happy to vote on those en bloc and happy to agree? All those in agreement? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Next, item 7 is Scala Arts Centre and Corn Exchange Early Works.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report is asking this committee to make an initial investment in a works package in the Corn Exchange using funding that we received from government that's now called the cultural funding. The committee will be aware that the design stage of the works for Corn Exchange was delayed by virtue of the fact that there was a delay in getting the grant award from government. So we commenced the Scala, work is going really well, practical completion is scheduled for October. We are within the budget envelope that we expected, etc. for that. In relation to Corn Exchange, the committee will be aware what a crucial asset that is to the business plan for Scala in terms of income generation for hires and food and beverage, and also it's got a standing capacity of 200, so it's a significant venue in its own right. There's obviously an awful lot of sense in being able to open those two buildings together, or at least within short order of each other, because they do relate to each other in terms of how they will be used. The Corn Exchange refurbishment is not as substantial as Scala, so therefore the programme won't take as long. However, there is still an awful lot to do, and a lot of it is, as with all of these projects, infrastructure and underpinning and invisible sets of services and new ceilings and things that nobody ever sees that take the time, and those works are often sequential. So inevitably the programme is still quite long. And the committee will also be aware that there's quite a complex design team working council side and Speller Metcalfe, an architect side, pulling all the different component elements together. The design stage that we're at is REBA stage 4. So when we get a REBA stage 4 design signed off and approved by the client being the council, but you know, by reference to Scala, the new charity, it's then possible for our contractor Speller Metcalfe to really provide a firm price for those works. So between REBA stage 4 and REBA stage 5 design work, Speller Metcalfe will be running sort of mini tender competitions with their supply chains and providing the local authority with a firm price, which will be the proposal that then comes back to this committee in March. So we're not asking for approval tonight to let the full works package, but in order to stand a chance of hitting a works programme that is in line with the Scala building, so, you know, later this calendar year, I'm not going to say the exact same date because it won't be able to hit October, but in time, so that there's not a big gap between the two buildings, we are advised that it would be a very good investment of time and money to let an enabling works package. It's strip out, it's surveys, it's some of the early works. Doing that, albeit with grant money, runs ahead of us knowing what the full budget will be for Corn Exchange. So we have to do that with open eyes and understand that we've still got to understand what the full budget is for Corn Exchange. But it does feel like a prudent thing to do for the time being. If we don't do that and pursue the alternative option and just wait, then there is no way we'll hit a practical completion this side of Christmas. And so the opportunity to use the building over the winter season will be lost. And beyond the building opening, there is also a set of public realm works to complete, particularly relevant, as well as the works that you'll be aware of coming down Angel Street. Particularly relevant is getting the level access right into the Scala building. So if the Corn Exchange wasn't completed in 2026 and itself rolled into 2027, then that will delay the start of the public realm works, because you've got scaffolding and footings and all sorts out there. So there's just a knock-on, and we get further and further away from an opening date. So again, advice from the design team, advice from officers is we should let this works package as an initial stage and expect the contractor to give us the full price, which will come back to this committee in March. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, it absolutely describes the complexity of a project and the linkages of the different parts and the ultimate time frame. I've got Adam.
Thanks very much, Chair, and I think that's a beautifully described description of the process that we're going through, and let's hope that the enabling, well, I urge you all to support the enabling works. It's a vital part of getting this whole complex going, and particularly trying to get the timing of its opening as close as possible to the whole Scala. The report talks about it leading to the regeneration of this quarter of the city centre. I would go further and say that the regeneration of the Scala is supporting the regeneration of the whole city centre, if not further. And across the city centre, you can see some really significant investments coming forward in terms of the leisure and nighttime industries. Several major projects have gone through planning or going through planning at the moment, and by very robust investment proposals. Housing's coming forward, and even new hotel being proposed as a conversion of the upper floors of Debenhams. And Scala and the investment that we are leading in there will be a significant driver of the onward realisation of the vision for the city centre as a really good place to enjoy, to take part in arts and culture, and a place to live. So thank you, Sian, and thanks, Council. Please support this recommendation.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that absolutely is a description of, I think, the original vision of the original funding. It's obviously taken iterations and to get us to this place, but yeah, thank you for that. Any other comments? I've got Louis.
Yes, I'm very supportive of this course of action. I think some people might look at this and say, well, this potentially could be a bit risky. Why are we going ahead with this? Because the costs may be not known and so on. But I think it's probably really important to say that actually this is potentially de-risking it, because by carrying out this work, actually starting the work and actually getting under the skin of the works, when we actually come to finally getting a price in March, then we'll be more known and a bit more definite when the actual contracts are raised. So it's the opposite of being risky. In fact, it's a prudent and a safe way to do it, as well as being able to advance the project forward as well. So I think it's important to say that it's not a risky thing to do. It's a prudent thing to do, and it is actually moving the project forward as well. So very much support it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also happy to support it, and I think this is a good example of the council being agile and taking the steps necessary to be able to try and hit bringing these things all together and opening later this year. So I'm very happy to support this and hope that we do hit those dates later this year.
Thank you very much. Not seeing any other hands up. I had a thought that I was going to say, and now it's left me. It is, the fact of having this come to Policy and Resources Committee is indicative that we are spending public money. And I think, you know, we all should be all conscious of that at all times. And this is, you know, the right governance process for sign-off and consideration of public funds by whatever source they have come. So thank you to colleagues. So the recommendation is that the committee delegates authority to the Managing Director to instruct Speller Metcalfe Malvern Limited to undertake an enabling package of early works to the Corn Exchange in the sum of £300,000 funded from the cultural funding allocation for this project. That we note the balance of risks in undertaking an enabling package of work in advance of agreement of final pricing of the intended contract variation for the inclusion of the Corn Exchange, and note that the committee is scheduled to make the decision on letting the full works contract for the Corn Exchange in March, subject to acceptable final prices and terms being available from the contractor. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. So the next item is Pride in Place programme, Warndon West. It's kind of amongst the papers. It appears as a supplementary agenda for those that haven't got bits of paper. So Pride in Place.
Thank you, Chair. So this is our introductory report on the Pride in Place programme and complements the all-member session that we held last week. So as members will be aware, Warndon West has been selected as a Phase 2 Pride in Place area. And what does that mean? That means that area now has access to £20 million worth of investment over the next 10 years. That investment is split 2/3 capital and one-third revenue. The prospectus that was released before Christmas on the Pride in Place programme really makes clear that the investment plan that will support the programme needs to be hugely community-led. And in fact, the decisions around the investment plan will be very much taken by the neighbourhood board, which I'll come on to in a moment. Warndon West is a term used by the Office for National Statistics, not one that we use locally. We refer to it as Old Warndon or Warndon. So that's what we'll be using as the project moves forward. And that sits wholly within the Warndon and Elbury Park ward in the city. We have an internal project group that's been set up, that's chaired by Councillor Rias. That includes the ward councillors for that ward and the county councillor for that ward as well as the MP and various officers and Worcester Community Trust. And that group will drive the work over the coming weeks and months up until a point where we can almost start to hand this over to the neighbourhood board via the community. One of the important parts of this report is to sort of draw out what the council's role is as accountable body, and that's in relation to the funding for the project. So as I say, £20 million worth of funding over 10 years. That will require an investment plan. The way I'm trying to explain this to people is that, you know, the council will need to be the body that signs off on any investment plan. So we will need to treat that as if we were spending our own money. So best value, EDI, those are the sorts of things that we as a council will need to take into account when approving the neighbourhood board's investment plan. As I mentioned, a neighbourhood board will be required, as well as a chair for that board, and that board will consist of, they're talking about between 8 to 12 members. The MP will need to be a member of the board, as will at least ward councillor. But the expectation is that there are more community representatives on the board than there are elected members. So again, it gives you the feel for the amount of community involvement that's required as part of the project. And again, we're in the current midst of thinking about the best way to try and engage the local community and drum up interest in taking up those positions. There's a clear emphasis within the prospectus that the council and the MP are to work closely on the project, both in terms of appointing the board chair, appointing board representatives, and for the submission of the investment plan as well. And in terms of what the investment can be used for, the range of interventions within the prospectus are as broad and as wide as you can imagine. So at the moment, it really feels as though nothing is off the table in terms of what the money can be spent on. But again, it's important to point out that, as the accountable body, we will need to make sure that it's being spent in line with our sort of values, particularly around best value. The two key dates to draw members' attention to are July. So by mid-July, we will have needed to have submitted details of our board membership, including our chair, to MHCLG for their approval. And also as part of that submission, if we wish to change the geography of the project area, that will also need to be submitted. And then once the board comes into place, obviously the key task is to put together the investment plan, and that investment plan needs to be submitted by the end of November. So there's an awful lot of work to be done in a relatively short space of time. And again, we're thinking through what that looks like in terms of program plans currently. Again, between now and the board coming into place, we are having conversations around what community engagement looks like. It's important that we aren't doing it to the community, that we're working alongside them and really, hopefully, getting to a point where that was being done by themselves. So conversations are ongoing around that at the moment. And again, to come back to those key dates, we'll bring further reports back to this committee ahead of any submissions. So last point really around the recommendations. Apologies that it's lengthy, but the recommendations are very much based around governance and delegations that allow us as officers to get on and do the doing. So they're very much focused on allowing us to be able to commence recruitment to the chair and the board positions, the terms of reference for the board, allowing us to be able to submit any changes to geography, and again that will be done in connection with the board, to receive and spend the capacity payment. So we've had £150,000 worth of funding from MHCLG to get on and do some of the doing. And then, as I say, we will bring back further reports ahead of those key submission dates in July and November for members to scrutinise. So I'll stop there, Chair. I'll be taking any questions.
Thank you very much. And the announcement was made a while ago, and we were awaiting further detail. That significant level of detail and the kind of guidance is now there. And thank you to officers for now bringing this into the public domain and having thought through what the governance issues and how the relationships work going forwards, hopefully. I've got a few hands up. Edward first.
Thank you. Firstly, I'm very grateful to council officers for the comprehensive report they've produced, as well as the tremendous work that's going on behind the scenes to support the delivery of Pride in Place. I've seen some of that work in action via the regular team meetings that have been going on, and I'd like to record a thank you to Jabba as well for ably chairing the working group. Let's be really clear on what this represents. It's an example of real life levelling up in action, supporting residents in a community that has all too often felt left behind, not by dropping help onto them from a million miles up in the sky, but rather by working with them, by delivering this with the people of Warndon, for the people of Warndon, and by the people of Warndon, to abridge a quote. It is a show of faith in the ability of the brilliant people of our estate to know best the things that will be of the most value to them and their community, and I can think of no greater vote of confidence than to award them the chance to spend this £20 million of money, to spend as they see fit and to improve the future of their estate. The potential is really life-changing, and it could go on any number of service improvements, whether that is in the realm of transport or youth services or urban regeneration or crime prevention or something entirely different if that's what they should choose. And that is incredible. And what's most incredible of all is they will be the ones making the decision, not us and not politicians. If we succeed here, who knows what we might achieve in the future? The single biggest case we can make for future similar investments in other parts of the city is to show that we can achieve something amazing right here for our residents in Warndon. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Louis' hand up.
Yes, this does sound very good, and I'm particularly pleased to see the involvement in community members in the board and also potentially chairing it even. So, and I think one of the, I suppose one of the difficulties maybe is trying to find the right people to be in this group. I'm thinking particularly hard to reach members of the community, you know, in terms of the a balance of genders, a balance of different people in different walks of life. And it might be that people who come forward might be self-selecting in a certain direction. So obviously it's important that we get a good cross-section and we get a genuinely a good spread of different types of people. So I've really got a question, and I'm very supportive of the idea, but I'm wondering, how will you do this? Because it sounds quite a difficult thing to do, is to encourage people to come forward, but also people who would perhaps wouldn't even think that they were capable of doing this, to involve them as well in this, and to say that you are able to do this. And it's quite a tricky thing to do, I think, is to tease those people out of the woodwork who might just underestimate themselves really, and to enable them to come forward. So tricky subject, and I wonder if you've got any early thoughts on how that will be achieved.
Yeah, thank you. And again, quite a few of us have been to Birmingham today at a Pride in Place networking event, and many of the comments you've made there came out during the day. I think my general answer is that we will need to do it via more than one approach. So I think it's going to take a number of means, both traditional and non-traditional. So we will go as wide and as deep as we need to try and draw out, you know, what hopefully will be a sort of a representative group that represents a sort of the population of that area. I think the other thing that we need to lean on heavily are the existing organisations in that area. They will know the community far better certainly than council officers. So again, I think it's drawing on their experience and the groups and the sort of the residents that they are working with. So yeah, so broadly, it's trying to use a variety of means to get across as many groups and as many residents as we can.
You might have to sort of ask people. Well, you might need to search them out rather than them come to you. That's the thought I had really. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yes, you know, we will want to encourage people. I suppose there's a balance there as well in making sure that the council aren't being seen to be sort of cherry picking or you know picking off certain individuals. But I think what we've spoken about is that as part of our engagement events, that there'll be a natural draw, you know, of people to come forward. But yeah, balance to be struck. Yeah.
Thank you. What's not entirely explicit here is how young people are going to be involved. And it seems clear to me, with a programme of 10 years, and with this massive investment, young people who are not yet at secondary school will be interested in what happens with this money and what it will do for them and the people they know. We really need to make sure they're involved in the business planning side of it, in the policy and decision-making side of it. I've done a lot of business planning with young people as a youth work manager in the past. I know it can be done. All you have to do is tell them what the parameters are and let them get involved, because they will do it and they will make good decisions, I think. And they should be allowed to do that. And I do take Councillor Stevens' point about gender balance and various other sorts of equalities considerations. Those must be paramount as well. But young people really must be at the heart of this.
Thank you. Yeah, and I absolutely agree with basically everything everyone said, that this is a really exciting programme and really important in an area that is probably, we've seen investment in the city centre with various things like Future High Street funds and the levelling up funding for culture. We need to also invest in our outlying areas like Warndon. I think one thing I'm really keen on that we take any learnings we have from this process, which I appreciate is being done in a very tight timescale, and ensure that that's embedded in the transfer to the new unitary, because the responsible body is going to change from the City Council to the unitary going forward, and I don't want it to get lost in the wash as that happens. And also that I hope that we do an excellent job on this, and it's a programme that the government repeat, because I don't want us to repeat it more quickly than 10 years, because there are other areas of the city that need investment as well. And it would be excellent if we can have future Pride in Place ones and build on expertise we've built up. And also, when we look at the unitary committee, unitary is talking about neighbourhood area committees, that maybe some of the learning about bringing in residents alongside elected members can build into that as well, so that people feel properly invested in their communities and the bodies that are running them going forward. So I think this is a really exciting opportunity, but let's make sure we maximise all of the opportunities we get from it.
Thanks very much, Lloyd, and thanks for the briefing the other day, which was a good explanation as well. This is the latest stage in, I think, more than 50 years of urban regeneration, where areas which are stickily deprived, which they tend to be the same geographic areas in urban areas, and they're really hard to budge. And I hope, and from what I see of the programme, the learning has been taken from those 50 years of different programmes and the academic thought that's gone into analysing them and in developing them. And the three strands which are identified in paragraph 2.3 are absolutely central to those. And as you correctly note, the third bullet point, empowering people to take back control, is absolutely vital. I'd just say to members, it's more than just who sits on the board. The board needs to steer the whole process, but underneath that, you've got a whole lot of thinking to go through before the solutions for this estate's issues are worked out. And just very quickly, first of all, there should be a really thorough community-led appraisal of what the issues are in that area. Community-led, community engaged with it. So people themselves are talking about what the area needs and what's working on it. And then at some point, the board will, I'm sure, want to prepare its overall strategy or vision for the estate. And again, that's a great way of including the estate as a whole and different groups brought into that plan-making exercise. And then, with 20 million quid, you're going to have a lot of specific projects to be delivered. And each one of those will have opportunity for the stakeholders in those projects to get engaged and design them and take part of them and take benefit from them. So it's not just a one-step action, it'll be throughout the whole process. And I hope that is not telling grandmothers to suck eggs. I've been probably older than I've done regeneration so long, though, so I thought I had to share that. Looking at the context of this will be vital, and what I guess that access to employment, removing barriers to employment, looking at the support to the labour market in terms of childcare and training will be particularly key. And let's hope that the people of Warndon and the young people of Warndon in particular can be encouraged to take advantage of the large investments which are going in across South Worcestershire and the economy as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's very difficult to be critical or not completely positive about £20 million or being sceptical, but I'll give it a go. I feel that it's my job to highlight some of the frustrations of Liberal Democrats nationally about the tendency of national parties, large parties, Labour or the Conservatives, to give money to local government that comes tied up with a lot of red tape and a lot of requirements of how the money needs to be spent. So yes, £20 million is a great thing, and it's a great investment in our city, and I do appreciate the thought that goes behind looking after people with deprivation in an area that hasn't had investment. But we've learned that with capital investment, that sometimes it may end up in projects that it appears to the public to be vanity projects, and there is a real danger there. We don't know what the public consultation will end up looking like. Simply, I just wanted to, raise the comment that sometimes it would be better if we had more autonomy on how we spend this money, and would ask the officers to just outline what are the constraints that we're facing, so that if the project ends up looking like something that the public don't think is a good use of money, we could explain what are the restrictions, what can we not do with this project, I realize we have £12 million, it has to be capital funding, £7 million has to be for revenue. Can you just outline, just for the members of the public, what that actually means, how it ties our hands, and what we can and cannot do with this money? Thank you.
I think Sian will probably want to give in as well, just to be clear. Myself and Sian are sort of joint sponsoring the programme. But I think I'd respond by probably saying how flexible the programme is. So the programme is flexible from a funding point of view in terms of where you can use that funding throughout the 10-year period. But as I said, when I presented the report, the range and list of interventions that it can be used for, I've not seen a programme where there is broad as this. The only sort of limitations that we as a council will need to take into account is whether or not the investment plan is delivering best value, and whether it's in line with our EDI principles. But the whole emphasis of the programme is that this is for the community to seriously get involved in how that money is spent and where it is spent. So, very much the council is a sort of an enabler, a facilitator, but really letting the community drive where they want that investment to take place. But I don't know whether Sian will want to add anything.
Through you, Chair, some of the civil servants who we've met have said that they were people, or they had colleagues who'd worked on levelling up in previous rounds, and happily not in Worcester but elsewhere, some funding hadn't been spent and had to be returned because there were too many outputs, too many metrics against the timescale. Now, we've had an acute issue, haven't we, where we've been blessed with capital but not revenue, and the local authorities had to step forward with revenue. So I share your apprehension that until we get into the doing, the devil's in the detail. This is a different scheme insofar as the civil servants have said, having taken that learning, they were keen not to then tell local areas what the outputs and outcomes should be and let those be locally designed. They've then said simultaneously, this must be locally led, but you must have certain people involved in the decision making. So we need to see how that plays through. I think that one of the constraints that we identified when they came and had a walk around with us was that Treasury have decided to slice the money up into 10 years. Here's an allocation every year for 10 years. So what that would mean with the local authority in the background, particularly a local authority like ours that now has financial challenges, if the community wanted to do one big ticket project early on and the funding hadn't accrued sufficiently, then there might be local expectation that you'd look to the local authority to effectively cash flow a larger project. And it would be very difficult for our council now to do that, given our constraints and reorganisation ahead of us. So I don't want to look for problems, but I think we have to be honest that previously we've been given very large allocations of capital, albeit with outputs, but kind of upfront. And this is a sequential drip, drip, drip every year. The positive is there's a really meaningful revenue allocation, which we haven't seen before. So in terms of delivering lasting change and evaluating outcomes, if the feedback from local communities is to stand up services that they've missed, that they've lost, that's really enabling funding that we as a council wouldn't be able to provide. So that feels transformational to me. The capital feels like a familiar story, but going to come in smaller chunks, and I think that might be a cash flow challenge for us. So different challenges. We're told it's a freer hand. The phase 1 areas have reflected that it's very resource intensive to get started. But I think that good governance requires that it should be resource intensive because it is public money. And I would imagine in 10 years' time, the National Audit Office should look back at this scheme and see that outcomes were delivered and that they were measured and that they were evaluated. So I think a slightly different framework before. And there's also a message that the local authorities' role would recede by year 4. And I think it remains to be seen how that sits with accountable body and National Audit Office standards around value for money if we fully recede and it's fully handed over to the community. So I think there's some, from a governance point of view, I have some trepidation. Direct spreadsheets, outcomes, outputs, that discipline appears to be more relaxed.
To follow up on that, so what would happen if we start a project, we make all the promises to the local community of things to deliver, we have a change of government, and suddenly the money is apparently not budgeted for? We've seen that before with the previous administration. So what would happen then?
Through you, Chair, because it's an annual allocation, I don't think we could be clear that the money was guaranteed. However, all the suggestions and implications are that it's a programme of investment, and if if the community were some way through some major investments, it would be in nobody's interest to abort those. So the pragmatism, I think, would come in.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I £20 million, being invested in the most deprived area sounds like there's nothing to lose. But I agree that there are always unintended consequences, and when it's such a huge shift, the unintended consequences are likely to be unforeseeable and potentially large as well. One of the key things from my sort of reading of this is the quality of community engagement from the outset is going to be really key, so that the board is not only representative of the community, but we'll have terms of reference that allow for what the community actually needs rather than what can be done or what's easy to do. Looking at 2.24, the sort of initial structure of engagement, it looks pretty standard kind of way to approach these things, and I feel like for a program like this, you kind of need to step beyond the standard. So I would, all the things in the list there are things which we're comfortable with and are relatively easy to do and so on. But do they really get to the heart of engaging a community in something like this? I have my doubts. And I think that that there needs to be some more innovative thinking, I think, in terms of how we engage communities. Just reflecting, some of the other comments around the table. I would put a plea out there to think about techniques which I've not seen organisations like Worcester Community Trust use before. I'm very happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but things like sense making and entangled trios. There are all sorts. There's a whole toolbox of things which I don't see in here, which I think would be eminently suitable, but maybe Worcester Community Trust and the council don't have the expertise to do them. I don't know, but just thinking specifically about untangled trios, picking up on some of the themes which have come out already around the table, that an entangled trio would be something like getting school children, could even be primary age, to interview people of their grandparents' age about their community and, you know, maybe specific problems or maybe you know, their experiences over time, and then match them with somebody who can make a decision, which might be a board member, or, you know, or it might be a you know, a council officer. So they actually together, you know, cross-generationally, I can't say the word. You know, that gets, you know, two sections of our communities that can often be not heard, actually having a voice together. So those are just like two kind of like techniques off the top of my head that I've heard of and I've seen used, you know, in innovative ways in communities, which, yeah, I would like to think that we can think outside the box.
No, thank you to Councillor Cochrane for his comments. The report certainly didn't intend to go into any approaches around consultation, and I appreciate that it can come across as a little business as usual. We met last week with MHCLG officials and an organisation commissioned by government to do some sort of workshop design around engagement. Again, we've listened to a number of colleagues from across the country today and approaches that they're taking. So we're very much open to doing things differently. And again, just to come back to I suppose the main premise of the programme, it's not for us to design it. So we will need to work with the community and see what works best for them and how they wish to be engaged with. That's really important as part of this as well. But absolutely, you know, we're open to doing things differently.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you everybody for the really useful insights and feedback regarding this. Firstly, I mean, I'd like to say it's a real honour to be leading this project. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I believe. Certainly in the life of this council, as we know, it's going to end in its current format, to make a real empowered change and give control back to the people. And it's really difficult, isn't it? A significant amount of money being handed to Worcester, and for once the councillors haven't got control. You know, that's, you understand, and we want, you know, everybody's got a brilliant idea of what could happen around the table within that ward, but it's not within our gift to decide what happens in that ward. And that's the bit I think we need to get over, to understand actually we haven't got that control. The control is with the people that are going to be on that board, and what the community come up through the consultation events and decide what they want to do with it. Obviously, we have, as the governing authority, and the financial prudence in terms of managing the money and ensuring that it meets that. But what happens with that money is totally up to the people of Wundon and those that are on this board. And so yeah, so it's like it's a real difficult situation to be in as councillors, to relinquish that control. And I think that what we need to get that message across is that actually we're not in control. Our job, and my job particularly, is to make sure that the circumstances are that the board, the success of that board in terms of that, and going forward to do whatever we can to support that board, to get the training, to get the skills, to get everything that is necessary for them to succeed. And it's not only a Wundon project. This is a project for the whole city to get behind. There are opportunities for stakeholders that are already working within that community to come us and present us with the data. Part of the work that we're trying to do is try to get a State of the Nation, State of Wundon report ready that we can hand over to the board to say, hang, this is a set of problems. These are the stakeholders that are working in there. With the consultation events, absolutely take you, Steve, as think outside the box, get creative, stuff that we've never done before. You know, whether it's an event in a Skittles Annie Plubs that stand outside a supermarket, whether it's standing next to a mum and dad on the football pitch, whatever techniques we can use to get to people, to young people, to old people, those people that are never had their voice heard before, to get to them. We'll use that opportunity, this opportunity to engage with them. So we've got a set of solutions, a set of problems, and then the board can decide on what is best for them to carry on with. And this is a plea also to businesses and professionals out there that want to volunteer that time, that can come forward to be an advisory to the board. So we'll be putting a call out, and we'll be putting an open call out to board members within that people. And I appreciate this is a significant amount of money that's been going, and for a board to take on £20 million worth of funding, it's not an insignificant amount. It comes with a very responsibility. So not everybody would want to be a board member, but there will be opportunities that, hang on a second, I want to change something local in my patch in terms of that, and they may turn up for a specific issue, and we need to have subgroups or other forums within the programme for people that only want to come in for one meeting, that might want to engage for only 2 or 3 meetings in terms of that. So we need to lay the foundations for the success of this as a city. If Warndon is hurting, then we're all hurting in terms of that. And another point is £20 million isn't going to change 50 years of underinvestment within Warndon, you understand? So what we want to lay the foundations for is continued success and sustainability, and show government actually what is Warndon is capable of, how we can make this a success, so they are in line for, hang on a second, this is a great project, we need to reinvest in there, this issue is still ongoing. Another round of funding in Warndon will enable a further set of outputs and results that we can lift these people out of the situation that they're in. So the power is in their hands. This is what ultimately this is about. It is about just what we haven't addressed for years and years, and people in the ward understanding that they have a real chance to sit at the table and make the decisions without political involvement.
Thank you. I just wanted to really respond to that comment from earlier on about anxiety, about unintended consequences. I think we're all at the moment in a place of anxiety and uncertainty, and that's not just a City of Worcester thing, that's a whole of country thing. I think the state of our politics, it is safe to say, is pretty febrile. We're only a couple of weeks away from what feels like yet another episode in the endless culture war for the soul of our city. And I think that's a culture war which is fueled in large part by the feeling of communities in Worcester that they've been left behind, that they are deprived, that they're being ignored. Estates like Warndon, like Tolladine, like Dines Green, that is where you find a lot of the simmering unhappiness and dissatisfaction. We have an opportunity right here to change the narrative, to change that story, to show them that we actually believe in them, that they deserve that brighter future. And what I would ask from the bottom of my heart for colleagues around the room is to give our community your trust. There is so much potential, there is so much good feeling, there are so many people who care deeply about the future of their estate, who don't want to feel like their council house has become their mouldering prison. They don't want their children to grow up aspiring to nothing more than to leave and escape because where they live is so difficult. What they want is to be able to walk home safely at night from a night out. They want their buses running on time. They don't want to feel like if they have a disability that it's a life sentence. What they want is just to be able to live decent, ordinary lives. Warndon deserves so much better than it often gets. And if we're serious about equality, if we're serious about inclusion and about empowerment, we must get behind this project. So colleagues, I ask you all around the room, please lend this project your support and your votes. Warndon really does deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone for their contributions. This is a really special opportunity for Warndon, and it absolutely is about pride in place. I would urge every resident within the area to get involved, to participate, to share their thoughts, to be part of delivering pride in Warndon and in the area. And I think it's useful to know, which I think is important, is, you know, this council does have a strong track record of asset-based community development. We do have an expertise that we are taking into this project and to this area, which is not necessarily the same for all councils, and that I think we do understand partnership working, we do understand listening and cooperation. And I'll just kind of reiterate the key objectives, or the key parameters, the strategic objectives, there we go, which is 3 of them: to build stronger communities, to create thriving places, and to empower people to take back control. Those are really important, really powerful things. And the empowering people to take back control, I'll just read the rest of that, because that is absolutely, for me personally, is actually about my values and the reason I do what I do. Talent is spread equally, but opportunity is not. Everybody should be empowered and in control of their lives and have a say over the future of their community. So if we can find the talent, the talents that are in Warndon, and give them opportunity and pride in place, pride in Warndon, we'll be doing a magnificent job. Thank you. The recommendations are somewhat lengthy. Thank you, Lloyd. But is it worth reading them through? Because it is the detail of the governance. I don't know what you think. Yeah. Because the detail of the governance is important. That is in part set down those parameters by central government, but I know, you know, it is also as a result of discussion and what's appropriate, and, you know, other areas with the pride in place are sort of wrestling with the correct wording and actually setting this out. So if colleagues can bear with me. So the recommendation is that the committee note the contents of the report, and particularly the announcement by government of Warndon West being chosen as a phase 2 pride in place area, and the council's role as accountable body for the funding allocation for this programme. That we delegate authority to the managing director in consultation with the chair and vice chairs of this committee and the MP for Worcester to finalise the Pride in Warndon West Board terms of reference, and to support the recruitment to the board chair and board membership in accordance with government guidance and requirements. That we delegate authority to the managing director in consultation with the chair and vice chairs of this committee, the MP for Worcester and the Pride in Warndon West Board to make any necessary representation to government to amend the default geographic boundary for the program if required. That we approve the community engagement and public consultation be undertaken in relation to the Pride in Place programme ahead of the establishment of the board. That we delegate authority to the managing director and the Section 151 officer to accept the terms of any grant agreement for the Pride in Place funding from government, and that we delegate authority to the managing director to authorise spend of any initial capacity funding from government for the purposes of establishing the board, undertaking community engagement, developing the Pride in Place plan, programme management, technical expertise for project development, and any other activities deemed necessary in accordance with government guidance, and notes that a further report will be brought to committee prior to any submission of the Pride in Place plan to government, scheduled for the autumn, in view of the council's responsibilities as accountable body.
I've never had so much delegated authority in one report. It's a shame I'm going.
Thank you. All those in favour? Okay, anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's one abstention and everybody else in support. So thank you for your time and thank you for your thoughts and contributions. It's really important. That brings us to agenda item 9. We're back to finances. Everything's about the money. So we have Q3 financial monitoring report, which is up to the end of December.
Thank you, Chair. So the forecast revenue outturn position based on Q3 for 25-26 is a small surplus of 48,000. This is after the headline figures here are we took 590,000 to contribute to the Scala project. We agreed that at the last committee, and then we've also estimated a forecast of 500,000 for partial exemption repayment of VAT. So those variances and all the other variances which are an underspend due to an underspend in other services and increased income are shown in table 1 in paragraph 2.4. There's then more detail on fees and charges in paragraph 3 and you'll see in appendix 2 shown by service and fee stream. The next section is treasury management, and there's been an improvement in treasury management forecast around interest payable and receivable. This is mainly due to having more cash, higher cash levels than we previously forecast. The next area is earmarked reserves. So there's a table in paragraph 5 that shows the level of earmarked reserves we estimate at the end of March 2026. And then again, we show our estimated position at the end of March 2028. Obviously, as Rachel said in a report earlier, this is improved since we last reported because we've now included the impact of having extended producer responsibility grant in our budget setting. The next item is capital monitoring. So paragraph 6 shows that we've reprofiled our capital programme for 25-26, moving over 10 million into work to be done in future years. And that's all within the funding package already agreed. The forecast capital budget position for 25-26 is shown in Appendix 5. Then the forecast deficit on budget rates collection fund is in paragraph 7. There's been no change in that since Q2. And then finally, we have the write-offs on council tax and business rates for Q3 in paragraph 7.5. And I've included a table with the reasons for the write-offs to give you more information. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Yes, some sadness, no doubt, behind the figures of the council tax uncollected. They're small amounts of money and deceased to no estate there, and insolvencies are life's challenges sat behind some of that, isn't there? Thank you. Alex?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with the report. I think I just wanted to highlight a table 2.4 on page 138 mentions that the Guildhall room hire is exceeding its budget. And I know I've been in a number of meetings where members have pushed for us to be doing more with the Guildhall and making more out of it. So I just wanted to pass on my well done to the team for exceeding their budget so significantly, which was all I was planning to say. But I have some amendments to make, some recommendations, which I apologise for not raising this before. And I take it entirely on myself that I didn't spot these earlier as Vice Chair of the committee. But recommendation 1.2 says that the forecast balances on earmarked reserves at 31st of March 2026 is in paragraph 5.3. It's actually in paragraph 5.2. The forecast deficit on the business rates collection fund is in paragraph 7.4. It's actually in paragraph 7.2. And the write-offs of council tax and business rates for the quarter ended 30th September 2025, paragraph 7.7, is actually in paragraph 7.5. So I hope that's not a controversial set of amendments.
Thank you. I did spot those as I reread the report this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I have noted. And any other comments or Jessie?
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that appears to me throughout this whole process we've been budget setting is that we are very vulnerable to the funding formulas and how we get money from central government. And I'm aware that we've had some positive developments by central government on that regard. And my question is, what has improved with the new administration? But if you had a wish list of what you would like to see, I realize this is a loaded question, in terms of government funding that would make us safer on the long term, what would it be?
I mean, it may be, I'm not sure it's up to officer to answer. This actually is that, in a sense, that's a question with regard to the MTFP, which that report we've already had. What we have in front of us is our actual expenditure for 25-26 up to the end of December, the calendar year that's finished, and what the likely forward look is for this financial year.
All right, I'll rephrase my question. How have the new changes affected the position that we are in terms of the funding formula?
Yeah, so in the MTFP, the paper that we covered earlier on, in terms of what we received through the fair funding settlement, that was £1.6 million more than what was in the MTFP as a forecast this time last year. So there would be a number of things that have contributed to that, and some have been alluded to about deprivation and about the consolidation of grants, in that, you know, they might be the same quantum, but because we're getting a different percentage, because they're being distributed in a different way, we're actually getting more cash. So in terms of how beneficial it's been for us, you know, in terms of our forecasts, you know, I can say it's £1.6 million more than what was forecast last year, and there's a whole raft of other issues as to what you know goes into that rationale. There's what, £75 billion worth of funding going through different funding streams.
Any other comments, questions from anybody? Okay. I was just kind of interesting that one of the other budgets, income exceeding planned, is actually from income from parking relating to parking enforcement and parking notices. It's one of those things, you know, the general population, residents, want lots of parking enforcement unless it's a ticket on their car. Well done to our team, that they do the job that our residents ask, and I'm utterly amazed they know the traffic regulations for every single corner of the city, and I think, you know, as a team are increasingly kind of focused on what are problem areas, being there at the right time and actually keeping traffic flowing, keeping our roads legal, even if some of our residents want to park where they shouldn't. So well done to the team. So this formal recommendation with paragraph numbers as amended. The committee notes the financial monitoring details, including budget variances and performance indicators for the third quarter ended the 31st of December 2025, notes the forecast balances on earmarked reserves at 31st of March 2026 in paragraph 5.2, the forecast deficit on the business rates collection fund in paragraph 7.2, and the write-offs of council tax and business rates for the quarter ended the 30th of September 2025 in paragraph 7.5. All those in agreement? Thank you. That's unanimous. And then final report this evening, agenda item 10 is the performance report for quarter 3.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So this is one with a nice, easy recommendation, unlike my other reports. So, yeah, not referenced any paragraphs, this one is safe. So it's just the performance scorecard that you've received a few times during the year already. Officers are here to, try and answer any questions or queries that you may have. I suppose it's just worth saying that on some of the revenues and benefits side of things, some of our collection rates are a little bit down from where we would like them to be, and some of our caseload in terms of processing claims, again, isn't where we would like them to be. That's from a number of reasons. We've had some staff leave, and it's not an area that we would be recruiting into, but we are trying to redeploy staff across all areas. Just to give you an example, housing benefit claims, as they will be done in for universal credit now for working age claimants, it just means that we're trying to upskill staff around a number of disciplines across there, and there's been lots of changes, what with business rates and the new system updates that are going on. So the revenues and benefits management team, it is something that we look at on a monthly basis and challenge the team accordingly. So happy to answer any other questions, or the directors are here if you have any queries.
Thank you. I've got one just following up on the housing benefit claims and the council tax support claims. So, yeah, note, the reduction in time to process housing benefit claims is absolutely to be welcomed, but there's obviously a level of concern around a slower response for the council tax support. My question is actually about the numbers of people involved. So this is just about time to process, just to have some feel for, how many households or individuals, how many housing benefit claims are being processed, or an order of magnitude, if you see what I mean.
I can't think of the numbers off the top of my head, but I've got them access to them, so I'll be able to send them to you and the rest of the committee, because it's part of the data that we receive on a monthly basis, and in looking at those trends and then being able to redeploy staff accordingly. So I'll get that to you. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't kind of get the chance to forewarn you. Any questions, comments? Alex?
It's in some ways just to reiterate what Karen mentioned earlier about getting hold of people on the phone. It's very easy to look at the graph of 99% of people of calls being answered within 90 seconds, or 99% of people getting a call back within 1 day, and that staying consistent and not commenting on it. But I think it's a very strong demonstration of the customer service approach of this council. And the easiness of getting hold of us, and that's absolutely something that needs to be maintained as we go through LGR.
Thank you. I just kind of want to make the comment. Local government reorganisation and devolution is sort of here in the performance report as, a project that is on track. That rather underestimates the scale of the work and the effort. We have submitted our proposal for a 2-unitary model. What I want to draw attention to is, because this is the first sort of opportunity, is the government's public consultation is now open on the 2 proposals for reorganisation within Worcestershire, and that is open until the 26th of March. So an opportunity, a request for everybody to contribute. And I think, you know, councillors here, members around the room, for us to sell the message, public engage, get as many people to participate in this. You know, I understand the survey is fairly easy to complete and absolutely would encourage people to do so. And there's a separate website for transforming Worcestershire, and note the joint vision for a North Unitary and a South Unitary that 5 district councils are signed up to, including ourselves. Louis?
Yeah, thank you. I think all the graphs and data look pretty good. Generally, the trends are all going all the right direction. My point I want to make is it's really quite a small pedantic point, really. On the customer feedback satisfaction, page 161, it's got the top of the range of the graph is going up to 80%. Lots of other graphs, you've got it going to 100%. I think it's probably good practice to put the whole thing up to 100%. And I know I've said this sort of thing before, but I think it's quite important to make sure we get those sort of details right, really. Thank you.
And I completely agree with you, but it's the system itself. Every graph would have to go into and manually change all of the axes. So it applies it to everything then. Yeah. So it's. I apologise. Really limitation. No,
you know what I'm saying. It's like,
I do, yeah. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. And I do have the answer to your question at the end if you want to.
I do sometimes feel there's a Green Party obsession with graphs that they apply differentially in different places. What I would just say with regard to the customer feedback satisfaction, which we have previously discussed at this committee, it is a graph based on the latest data point relates to 8 individuals that have responded. Now, we have discussed trying to get more people to actually give us feedback. So when it's 8 people, whether we're aiming at 80% or 100% is really quite academic. Answer to my question.
Yeah, so in terms of the caseload for council tax, the working age claimants are 3,651, pensionable age 2,172. That was at the end of December. And housing benefit, working age claimants 479 and pensionable age 1,492. So that, I mean, just to give you some context in terms of housing benefit, in December 2024, it was 1,109, so it's more than halved in 12 months because of the switch to universal credit in terms of managing those cases. And to give you a comparison on council tax caseload, December 2024 in total it was 6,055 and we're down to 5,823. So again, a reduction.
Thank you. That's really helpful actually to get an understanding of the number of people's lives that are being touched by these. I don't know whether it's something that is looked at within Communities Committee in terms of support. Yeah. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I missed a hand. Karen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight something really positive in the report. It's the number of apprenticeships, traineeship apprenticeships is above, you know, I know we aim to maximise, but we've got 12. But also the context, I know we've talked a little bit recently about the amount of training that staff are getting as well. And obviously at times of uncertainty within the future of the council, that's so important. So this is just a really positive part of the report. Thank you.
Yep, I agree. Spotted that one as well. Thank you. So, recommendation. The shortest recommendation of the night, that Policy and Resources Committee notes the Council's Q3 performance for 25-26. All those in agreement? We are unanimous. Thank you. I'm not aware of any other business. No.
And there ends my last committee meeting.
That is an item of any other business. Your last do you want to say anything?
Bye for now.
That's not your most profound announcement.
I'm saving my. I'm saving up. Yeah, last committee meeting. On a serious point, this is my last ever committee meeting, my last P&R meeting. I was hoping to go to PED meeting, but unfortunately the date was moved to when it clashes with my wife's birthday. And you know, I'm afraid, I'm sure, of course we will see each other again over the next few weeks. But in the meantime, thank you very, very much. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I dread to think how many hours of committees you have sat through in your career.
I'll tell you in my leaving speech.
Thank you for all your contributions for this particular committee and in other ways. Thank you. I officially declare the meeting closed.